So if we could get word out to the lobby to please come into the room and be seated.
I've got a spot. I think there's another spot next to me.
Okay.
Yeah, there's.
I'm going. I'll be there. I'll be at the viewing tomorrow. The second part was actually I'm not going to share. Make you stop. Over.
Yeah. Andrew, that's all I said. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're good.
Yeah. I'm just getting Andrew. Don't fall, Andrew.
Someone's a little older, but not much. Remember when I was in it?
Yes.
How you doing, my leader? But either way.
Okay, if I could have everyone who's in the collaborative, please come to the stage. Could I have the press conference speakers join me here at the podium? And if everyone could please take a seat. If I could also remind you to please turn off your cell phones.
Good morning, welcome. How's everybody doing today? Good, very exciting day here in Prince George's County in the state of Maryland. Welcome to today's announcement, and we'll open up this portion of our program with welcomes and words from President Bro, President of Bowie State University. Dr. Bro.
Thank you so very much, and welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Bowie State University. I am Amita Bro, the very proud 10th president of Bowie State University, the oldest HBCU in the state of Maryland. And on behalf of our 6,400 students and the entire campus community, it is indeed my pleasure to welcome our invited guests, news media, and everyone joining today's press conference. I'd like to extend a special welcome back to BSU to Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown. Please give him another round of applause. And we welcome today Chief Public Defender Natasha Darteague, who will speak to you in just a moment, but give her a round of applause. And a big warm welcome back to Judge Alexander Williams and everyone from the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics at the University of Maryland. Please, a round of applause. Some joining us today may be here for the first time, and it's my hope that this will not be the last time that you visit our historic campus. Beyond today, as we continue to grow our enrollment, expand our academic programs to meet workforce needs, and preparing our graduates to enter a rapidly changing world. For over 150 years, Bowie State University has maintained a commitment to opening pathways to higher education as a public university. And as a public university, we are dedicated to serving the public good. We are especially proud of our legacy of excellence that carries through our academic programs, faculty teaching and research, and our civic and community engagement. A testament to BSU's excellence can be seen in our latest national rankings. This year, U.S. News and World Reports ranked Bowie State University number 7 among HBCUs in the country. And Bowie State University is also listed among top innovative schools and as a top performer for social mobility in the region. And our academic programs in teaching, computer science, and psychology were also recognized by U.S. News and World Reports. As our society continues to face unique and unprecedented challenges, I believe the history and legacy of Bowie State University informs us that many of the answers can be found right here on this campus. We have a rich history of leading the way in higher education to address many of life's most pressing and critical issues. Today, we are graduating cybersecurity analysts, artificial intelligence experts to protect businesses and our nation, nurses and teachers to address the workforce shortages, scientists to address climate change and food insecurity, and social scientists who can help meet the growing concern for behavioral and mental health in our communities and across the nation. These are just some of the many examples of impactful programs you will find here at BSU. In fact, Bowie State University is the first and only HBCU in Maryland offering a full degree program at a correctional facility to help reduce recidivism. That is life-changing. It is major and life-changing. And so I want to, at this time, just express our deep appreciation for the opportunity to host today's press conference. And without further ado, I'd like to bring to the microphone the public defender for the great state of Maryland, Natasha Darteague.
Good morning. I am Natasha Darteague, Maryland State Public Defender, and I am extremely happy and excited to be here today. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say my first time here at Bowie State University, but I do want to say thank you to our host, President Dr. Bro, as well as Dr. Adams, the director of the Institute for Restorative Justice and Practices, and the phenomenal students of Bowie State University. In recognizing Bowie State as a partner in this venture, particularly at this moment, I do want to acknowledge and am sensitive that the issue of crime impacts us each personally, regardless of where we are in the state, even in the sanctity of our college campuses. As a graduate of an HBCU myself, the illustrious Howard University School of Law, I take great pride in being here today at a sister HBCU to share in this historical announcement. The solutions to the obstacles we face can be found in institutions of higher learning, such as Bowie State. I am honored and privileged to be here to share the stage with the individuals that you see here today, but in particular my partner, Attorney General Anthony Brown. And I want to say a sincere thank you not only to Attorney General Brown, but also to his team for the past few months of the work that we have all been doing together. But I do want to say a personal thank you to A.G. Brown for having the vision and the understanding that his duty to protect Maryland requires investment in people and building of communities. And I also want to say thank you to A.G. Brown for taking the bold step to partner with the Office of the Public Defender, because we are tasked with defending the people. Because the truth is, the OPD and the OAG are traditionally seen as opposite forces in the courtroom, adversaries on different sides of criminal law issues. But today, we stand firmly together in collaboration. And why? The reason is simple. Mass incarceration, which is the systematic cycling of people from poor, marginalized communities in and out of jails and prisons, is a crisis in Maryland. And that crisis disproportionately harms Black individuals and requires increased leadership and commitment for it to end. Strengthening communities, reducing racial biases, and responding to the underlying drivers of crime, which is in fact poverty, are the most effective to increasing public safety. And they are also the keys to eliminating mass incarceration. So through partnership, deepened understanding, and a shared vision, we come together to eliminate the causes of mass incarceration. Today, we together are launching the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative. MEJC, as we'll affectionately call it, is the first ever advocacy partnership between the Attorney General and the Public Defender. MEJC will amplify the voices of marginalized communities in different ways and bring renewed focus to the development and implementation of meaningful and sustained criminal justice reform. Past policies have not and are not working. Since the crime bill of 1994, we as a country and Maryland as a state has engaged in decades upon decades of incapacitating individuals, tearing apart families, and crushing communities. Half of all Americans have an immediate family member who has been incarcerated. 1 in 5 people have a parent incarcerated. And 2.6 million children have a parent who is currently incarcerated. Now, to visualize this, what does 2.6 million look like? It is the combined populations of Prince George's, Montgomery, Baltimore County, and Baltimore City. This is not only a national problem, it is a cancer that infects Maryland. Maryland incarcerates the highest percentage of African Americans in the country, and sentences for Black individuals are substantially higher than those imposed on white individuals for the very same offenses. Nearly 80% of the people serving sentences for more than 10 years are Black, and that's in comparison to the Maryland population overall is only 30% Black. 41% of Black individuals serving lengthy sentences entered prison as children or as young adults. Furthermore, we know that children of incarcerated parents on average are 6 times more likely to become incarcerated themselves. Disproportionate arrests, convictions, and sentences have devastated families and communities of color throughout Maryland. But I will pause for a moment and speak about the elephant in the room. It is no coincidence that I stand here as the first person of color to lead the Maryland Office of the Public Defender. And it is no coincidence that my esteemed partner in this effort is the first person of color to lead the Office of the Attorney General. We understand the assignment we are given. We are at a crucial point in history and must take firm hold of the opportunity. We are the solution to the problem of mass incarceration. Within the last 20 years, changes have enhanced the lives of Maryland. Amongst my personal favorite has been the enacting the policies of police reform. Key in all of the work was collaboration, coming together of government leaders, community advocates, and institutions of higher learning, including our HBCUs. So similarly, we are here today in collaboration to improve the lives of all Marylanders. We have taken the experiences of OPD, OAG, our education partners, and our community stakeholders. We have met and spoken with neighbors and leaders in barbershops, impacted persons at neighborhood programs, and community stakeholders by Zoom. We are here today as a Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative. I thank the esteemed group of individuals joining in the work of MEJC, those present today, and those who could not join us this morning. I do give a special thanks and much heartfelt thank you to my team at the Office of the Public Defender, and I would like those who from OPD to please raise your hands. But we will all work together. MEJC will work to uplift marginalized communities and develop meaningful reforms that end the cycling of people through Maryland's jails and prisons. But I do have an ask, and it is a simple one, but it is 4 parts. And the ask is for you to join in the solution. Number 1 is to participate in the MEJC public forums, to share ideas and provide feedback. Number 2 is to invest in community-based services that address poverty, mental illness, and addiction. 3 is to encourage investment in reentry programs. And 4, to support the legislative efforts of MEJC. With that, I say thank you and introduce my partner, Attorney General Anthony Brown.
Again, good morning. How's everybody doing? All right, that's my partner, Natasha Dartigue, the Public Defender of the State of Maryland. A round of applause. Natasha and I met for the first time when she attended my swearing in. I was a bit taken back and surprised, but very pleased that the Public Defender attended the swearing in of the 47th Attorney General of the State of Maryland. I said to Natasha then, I've said it to her on multiple occasions since, and today we say it publicly that we are true partners in ensuring that the systems of justice in Maryland are in fact just. So I thank you for your partnership, Natasha, and to your colleagues from the Office of the Public Defender. Where's the Office of the Attorney General in the House? Okay, thank you for being here. So protocol has been established. Folks have been acknowledged and thanked for their presence and their participation. I do want to add David Trone, representative, a member of Congress, who's been very active in public safety and in reform efforts, and representing the Maryland congressional delegation, is joining us here today. So good morning, and thanks to each and every one of you for being here for what I think is an important announcement, the launch of the collaborative at a very critical moment in the history of our state. I've been in public service for about 25 years. If you count my military, it's been 40. 25 years in service to the people of Maryland in this country. I've had the privilege to participate in a number of initiatives that were designed to change lives and impact lives, to improve lives, and in some cases to even save lives. Repealing the death penalty, veterans' behavioral health initiatives, initiatives around domestic violence and sexual assault, reducing the number of children in foster care, implementing the Affordable Care Act. And today, this launch and this announcement represents for me what I believe in the 25 years that I've been in service to the state of Maryland and the people of this country will be the most impactful initiative to change the lives of Marylanders. And I'm very excited to be a part of this and honored to have this opportunity. As a black man in America, as the first African-American Attorney General, the father of 3 black men, young adults, I say to you today that the over-incarceration, the mass incarceration of black men and women in Maryland is a crisis. It is something that we all know, no matter the color of our skin, that the vast majority of the faces of the people who are taken from our communities and put behind bars are African American men and women in Maryland. This is a crisis. What many do not know is how severe and deep the crisis runs in Maryland. It is, as the public defender mentioned, with the numbers that she shared, and I will reiterate them because they are deserving, they warrant, they demand to be repeated. It is the worst in the United States of America. African Americans we make up around 30% of the population in Maryland, but we also make up a staggering 71% of the prison population. That percentage is the worst in the country. When it comes specifically to black men, we make up approximately 14% of the population here in Maryland. Yet, we are 73% of the male prison population. And black men lead in a very notorious way when it comes to long prison sentences. Black men in Maryland are serving the longest sentences. Nearly 8 in 10 Marylanders who are in prison 10 years or more are black men. And 40% of those entered prison as a young adult. Marylanders need to know the extent of this crisis, and policymakers need to understand the reasons why and the ways in which we can address this crisis. Why is a black man in Maryland more likely to be arrested? Why are we more likely to be held in pretrial detention and charged? Why am I less likely as a black man to be offered a diversion program? 7 times more likely to be falsely convicted? And why is a black man in Maryland 6 times more likely to be sent to prison? Why? And for black women, the landscape is just as dismal. While nearly 16% of the residents in Maryland are black women, they make up nearly 53% of the female population that is incarcerated in our state. Our criminal system is permeated with racial bias and a discriminatory inertia that renders it unjust for far too many. And that is what both the public defender and I believe. As Natasha mentioned, the attorney generals and my assistants, the public defenders, and her assistants often find themselves in a court of law on the opposite sides or different sides of the courtroom, adversaries. But adversaries in effort to seek the truth. And today we stand here united around one issue, and that issue is to improving the criminal justice system so it serves each and every Marylander alike. Our collaboration is significant, if not historic. We're both committed to ensuring the justice system is fair. Together, and with urgency, we are launching the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative. And we're proud to do it in partnership with our academic partners. You'll hear from Judge Alexander Williams and the Center for Justice at the University of Maryland College Park. We've heard from Dr. Bro, and we'll hear from Dr. Adams about the Institute for Restorative Justice and Praxis here at Bowie State. And I'll reiterate, the first HBCU in the state of Maryland. So what we are doing and what you see behind me, we are harnessing the knowledge, the passion, the experience and understanding from within government, academia, and private and community groups. The enormity of this crisis demands it. There are representatives from over 40 advocacy and policy and community organizations, many of whom have been diligently working on this issue for quite some time. And for that, we're grateful, and I'm humble. And we're going to work together to build on that work. Through this collaborative, we'll examine existing laws and policies and practices, as well as the biases within the system and our culture, and recommend a new way of doing business. We'll dig into the points of entry in the criminal justice system. We'll zero in on recidivism. We'll work to create an environment for successful reentry. As the state's chief legal officer, public safety is one of my top priorities. And I know I share that commitment and that value with our governor, Governor Moore. And I also share his value and his commitment that will leave no Marylander behind. If you commit crime or violence, you will be held accountable, no matter the color of your skin. But, and I've said this so often, we are not going to investigate and prosecute our way to safer neighborhoods. Not in Maryland, we won't. We most certainly are not going to prosecute our way to safer neighborhoods in an unjust system. We know this because in communities where you see high rates of incarceration, you see crime go up, not go down. The public defender and I have been in the community together over the past several weeks. Open ears, open mind, and with an open heart. The frustration and pain in these conversations is palpable. You can feel it. But we also felt the determination and belief that together we can affect change. We heard from men who entered the system as children and walked out as old men. We heard about the difficulties accessing programs to better prepare themselves for life on the outside. And we heard a lot about mental health. Despite the darkness in this particular state of affairs, I am encouraged and hopeful. And I'm emboldened at this moment. With the people that we have around the table, we will impact lives. We will change trajectories for families and generations to come, and we will end the seemingly nonstop, unrelenting mass incarceration of black men and women in Maryland. So let's get to work. And with that, let me call to the podium Dr. Judge Alexander Williams.
Thank you so much, and let me start by thanking Dr. Bro and her leadership team and this university for hosting this historic event. And when I say historic, when you're talking about a partnership between the Attorney General and the Public Defender and Bowie State University, of course, my center, that is very, very historic to address what I consider to be one of the most devastating, unfair things that has happened in America. Let me deviate for a second to tell you that I have been part of the problem. I have served as a public defender many years in Prince George's County as defense attorney. I was then the elected state's attorney here in Prince George's County for 2 terms, and I served on the federal bench for 20 years. So my hand has been a part and parcel of some of the issues that we're going to be focusing on today. I will say after 20 years, I left the federal bench. I loved it, but what I hated about the federal bench was the sentencing guidelines, which compelled me to issue long sentences, a lot of life sentences for drug offenses, particularly on the cocaine crack disparity that was just unfair. So I've had a hand in it, and my suggestion here today is this. We're opening up the discussion. We're lifting up the discussion, but all of us, whatever role you have in the administration or the implementation of policies affecting criminal justice, let's work together and let's try to address the causes and consequences that result in this massive incarceration. What drives me and my center, the Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics at the University of Maryland, what drives us would be the disparities. And that's a passion that I have, because the face of injustice is just awful from my perspective. And so one of the issues that I'm going to be dealing with would be how to come together and to come up with some solutions to the massive incarceration. You heard Attorney General Brown. You heard him talk about Maryland with 31% of the population being African Americans, yet 70% of the prison population is African American. That's unacceptable. And we're going to do something about that. And so I'm just glad to be part of this partnership. This is a historic moment. I have a few slides I'm going to share with you in a few minutes, so I'll just stop my conversation right now. But thank you all for having me, Attorney General Brown, Public Defender Datik, and Bowie State University, and the President. Thank you for having my center be part of the partnership. Now, I don't have a large staff like you all ask people to stand up, and so, but I do have some dedicated staff. Can y'all stand up? Stand up. All right. And so we're doing our part. Thank you so much. Now, who am I to introduce? Dr. Adams? All right, come on up. Yes, Dr. Adams at Bowie State University. Give him a hand.
I appreciate you, good brother. Wow. Judge Williams, you make it difficult to follow that act. I'm just saying. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Charles Adams, the Executive Director of the Restorative Justice and Practice Institute here at Bowie State University. And we are so honored and excited to be a part of this initiative. You heard the numbers. You heard the call. And let me say this, to AG and the Public Defender. Bowie State University is answering your call. We believe in being solution-oriented. We're in the community every day, fighting that good fight, recognizing that we exist because we want to help the marginalized communities, those underserved communities that many people are left behind. But we know at Bowie State University we can make a difference. So we're excited to be a part of this initiative. And let me give you 3 reasons why we're uniquely qualified to be here. Number 1, the Restorative Justice and Practice Institute is the only one in existence in the state of Maryland. and one of just a handful nationally. We train school teachers, criminal justice personnel, juvenile justice officials, the faith-based organizations. We train anyone and everyone around restorative practices, restorative justice, because we believe in second chances. And that's why in 2019, we went to the Jessup Correctional Facility, and we launched our BS program for incarcerated citizens under the Second Chance Pell Grant, because we believe in second chance. Because we said, if not us, then who? If not us, then who? Because many of those people behind the walls look like me. But for the grace, go I. So we're passionate about what we're doing. We're also, come spring 2024, we're launching a job pilot program for the women at Jessup. Led by my colleague, Dr. Matasha Harris. She's going inside and building that bridge from incarceration to the community. Because we believe in second chances. We believe in what we're doing. We believe that we can make a difference. And finally, but not least, my colleagues and I, as researchers, we've been very instrumental in the work of trying to make the system fair, of making sure that the system's equitable. In 2021, my research team, we worked on racial impact statements for the legislature that led to the Police Accountability Act. So we were very instrumental in making sure that the police are held accountable. And now we find ourselves once again examining some measure of the criminal justice system and asking ourselves, can we make a difference in leveling the playing field? And I truly believe we can. And I truly believe we will. But it's going to take all of us. We cannot just have a press conference and move on. We can't just take a photo op. This has been going on for too long. It's systemic. It's rooted in our past, but it does not have to be our future. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to just rallying the troops. And before I leave, all my BSU people, stand up and recognize. Appreciate you.
Good morning. Good morning. You've heard again and again about the impacted individuals. I am Earl Young. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Office of Attorney General, Office of Public Defender, and the host, Bowie State University, for this wonderful opportunity. I am extremely grateful to be a part of the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative. This is a historic opportunity to participate in such an event. I stand before you after spending nearly 35 years inside Maryland's Division of Corrections Institutions. My reentry has been slow, but I've made meaningful strides for myself as well as my community. Today, I'm a credible messenger. I'm a mentor. I'm a speaker, and I'm an entrepreneur. My work centers around influencing young lives and returning citizens who have spent lengthy prison sentences. Currently, I work for New Vision Youth Services under the leadership of Bishop Billy Stanfield inside of Baltimore City Schools. I deal with the at-risk individuals in the schools, and I'm a part of the Mayor's Office of African American Male Engagement Program with the individuals that are at risk in the streets. I am also a part of Johns Hopkins Outreach Coordinating Program, the Baltimore Youth Film Arts. I love giving back to individuals who were and who are like me. I'm extremely appreciative to lend my voice and lived experience to bringing about meaningful change to the policy and procedures throughout the Division of Corrections. It is also noteworthy that I mentioned that I was a part of removing the governor from the process, the parole process. It was an honor to lend my voice to the Juvenile Restoration Act. My sincere hope is that we can find ways to reduce incarceration and make our communities safer at the same time. I think we can do this when we provide youth and their families support and mentorship, behavioral health services to help people heal from trauma, creating effective alternatives to incarceration, and actively promoting rehabilitation from the day an individual enters institutions. And lastly, allowing rehabilitated individuals a meaningful opportunity to give back to their communities. Thank you.
Good. So, look, that concludes essentially our announcement, our launch, the press portion. I know there'll be what? Oh, do I have someone else going?
No, you have media questions.
Oh.
Q&A, just media questions.
Oh, we're going to do that now? Okay, good. All right. Yeah, okay. Got it. Good. Okay, first question. Yes.
Morning.
Morning.
Mr. Young kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of how you balance it out to make communities safer, but also in mass incarceration, which has been around for hundreds of years. How will you do that, sir? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll repeat the question. That better?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm William Ford, writer of Maryland Matters. So introduce myself. But as Mr. Young had mentioned about making it a balance of keeping communities safe, but also ending systemic racism, which mass incarceration has shown. How will you do that, sir, when there's black, white, Asian, purple, who are saying, help us, we're hurting? And if you want to, Madam Public Defender, please.
I'm going to yield to the public defender on that one.
So especially when we talk about public safety, we have to expand our understanding and vision because it is more than just policing. Police respond to crime, they don't prevent crime. So we have to come from that level of understanding. And coming from that level of understanding, we have to go, what is the root of the problem? We know that the root, especially when we talk about crime, is poverty. It is lack of opportunity. It is lack of adequate housing, education, mental health services. So essentially, if you go to the root of the problem, which we have not done historically, and which MEJC is going to do in a collaborative effort, is to go to the root of the problem, then we will change all of those things in the long run. Because simply we know locking people up, we've done it for decades and decades and decades, and it has not made our neighborhoods any safer.
Great. Well, thank you. So what you're going to see at the end of this portion of the program, we're going to have sort of an organizational meeting. We are a collaborative that will be organized by committees covering down on things, looking at reentry, looking at issues prior to engagement in the justice system, looking at policing and police practices, and a number of other committees organized around different issues and aspects of this system. the solutions, and no one, certainly as a collaborative, pretends to have all the answers. It's going to come in a combination of recommended legislation and budgets, realignment of existing resources, stronger collaborations between government and private entities, education and practices in organizations, whether it's police or whether it's our schools. And this is a problem that has been decades, if not more than a century in the making, and we're not going to fix it by January 2024, the next legislative session. We're going to work collaboratively, work smart around these issues to make sure we fully understand the scope of the problem so that we can begin identifying actionable recommendations that are actionable in those different areas I mentioned: legislation, budget, education, alignment of resources, and the like.
Any other questions from the press?
Thank you, Kate Ryan with WTOP. I just have a quick question on members here today. Are you hearing also from victims of crime? Is it a restorative element to this? Forgive me, I came a little bit late. But is that part of this? We've seen, for example, the progress. Bowie State has the DS program, and I was lucky enough to go to Jessup and hear from the gentleman taking part, how it's changing the way they see themselves and their dynamics with their families, making re-entry possibly better. But what about from the victim standpoint on this? What kind of input might they have?
Yeah, victim advocacy groups are welcome to this conversation. Look, in the 25 years I've been doing this, and I've spent a lot of time in Annapolis, spent a lot of time on the second floor as executive with the legislature, you don't get meaningful reform unless you can have consensus. Now, sometimes there's gridlock around issues, and our commitment and determination is to get beyond that gridlock. But you have to have consensus, and the way that you get consensus around items that you can move forward on, you have to have all voices at the table. So victim advocacy groups will have a voice in this collaborative.
We do have a member.
Yep, over here. There we go.
Any other press questions? Yeah.
Attorney General Brown, Dylan C. Plum, the former banner. I think you started to talk about this a little bit, but I was curious if you could take me through kind of more specifically how you see the collaborative being able to address this issue, just given that, you know, your agency obviously isn't kind of prosecuting most of the criminal cases and
Yeah, in some ways, it's similar to the process that my predecessor undertook, the Access to Justice Task Force during the pandemic. And it was a large collaboration of stakeholders looking at what the needs were during the pandemic to connect people to resources, legal resources, community resources, to avoid engagement with both the civil and the criminal justice system. And if you look at that task force, it was comprehensive in scope and in membership. So it was important to me. The first phone call that I made was to the public defender, because as your question suggests, I have one perspective. I have multiple perspectives within my office, but I don't have all the perspectives that need to come to bear and to understand this issue. So that's why my first call was to the public defender. The public defender is closer to the ground than the Office of the Attorney General is. I have no problem saying that. The nature of their work, they have a sense of what's happening in the community, perhaps as good or better than any other organization that's funded by state dollars. But when you see the collaborative behind me, and those who are not here and will be part of it, represent so many different segments of Maryland, right? The business community, the nonprofit community, academia, government, within government, different perspectives, different agencies, different organizations. And that's how we're going to really get our hands around the full scope of the problem and identify the solutions. It could not be something that could be done alone in the Office of the Attorney General, no matter how talented we may be.
And I would just like to add the component that there is a recognition that the laws must be fair and they must be applied fairly to all individuals. And there is that recognition that in order to do so, we all have to come together to look at what exists and make the necessary changes regardless of the respective roles that we hold. And that is the essence of the MEJC, to make sure that what we have, we understand is not working, it is not fair for everyone, and we have the ability and is now our duty to make a difference.
No further questions from the press? Good.
Thanks, everyone, and bear with us as we transition to the sort of the second half of today's program. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take that binder now, because I think it has my remarks for
Take this with you. Okay. All right, let's talk. Okay.
I'm Joseph from Congressman Raskin.
Oh, how you doing, Joseph? Okay, nice seeing you.
Any collaborative members in the audience, please come to the stage. Again, any collaborative members in the audience, please come to the stage.
Hi, I'm Dave. It's on.
I'm Daisy Kalou. Remember you was on a meeting with me and Otis? Oh, yeah. Remember Otis said, I'm the one that said, well, I can run it and I can vote for you.
Okay, let me transition this meeting.
Okay, for a split second. He's got to start this meeting. Because you missed the beginning.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Take one sound.
We got more information on location.
Slide right by you.
We need this move. Do we? We'll figure a way.
Okay, we'll be starting the meeting in 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Say that name, Charles Young? That's Dr. Charles Adams. Okay, could you get something to Dr. Picture right now. We have everything. We can go. Let me take a picture. Okay.
Can I get it?
I don't know. Let me check with them.
Oh, sorry. Haven't taped it down yet.
Yeah. I'll make sure they know. I got to join this.
We have all members who are on the collaborative now on stage. Is everyone here? Okay. Attorney General and Public Defender, you have the floor.
It needs to be turned on, sir.
Good morning. So first of all, I want to once again thank Bowie State University for hosting us and our academic partners, the Building Center, and Park, and the School of Justice and Practice. And I want to thank all the members of the collaborative. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be part of what I think is a really significant opportunity for us to collectively build on the work that so many of you are already doing. And I think together we can amplify and accelerate that work and improve our criminal system here in Maryland. I want to acknowledge and thank our elected officials who are here. A number of them said hello to me after the event. I apologize. I didn't see you in the room. I was in the house. You want to wave your hands if you're still here, public elected officials? All righty, there you are. Thank you for being here. I know we're joined also by some members of the governor's cabinet. And at some point, I think we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves, I think. So at that time, we can do that. We're here today. I'll keep delivering remarks. Thank you for being here with that.
Thank you again, everyone, for gathering today. I echo Attorney General Brown's remarks. I am so excited to get to this point, to see all the faces that are gathered, especially in terms of the collaborative. This is such an exciting moment. We as MEJC
You see the guy in the red shirt down there, this builder? He has some gaffers tape. I don't know that he has some gaffers tape. You see him right down there? Yeah.
And with that said, I would just say let's get to the business of the meeting.
So does everyone have the agenda in front of them? Okay, you have an agenda. So next up on the agenda, we're going to hear from Christian Gant. He works in the Office of the Attorney General, Director for Strategic Initiatives. I know that he and Mr. Willie Flowers, who's Chief of Staff at the OPD, they've been working really hard. They're keeping the trains running, and they're going to present, have a presentation about really the goals of the the collaborative, and then at some point later in the meeting, the structure, timeline, and things like that. So with that, let me turn it over to Christian Gant.
Good afternoon. My name is Christian Gant, Assistant Attorney General for a Strategic Initiative.
Good afternoon. I'm Willie Flowers, Chief of Staff of the Office of the Public Defender.
All right. So starting out, getting just a little more about our mission, and again, this is directly from the mission statement of the collaborative. Our mission involves recognizing, researching, and addressing the factors contributing to over-incarceration with a focus on creating a comprehensive reform plan. And through this presentation, we're going to talk more, share more about the members of the collaborative, as well as the structure of committee and decision making, and how the rest of the collaborative. So, MEJC will at all times have equity, fairness, and justice, true justice, as guiding principles as it works to meaningfully address the impact of historical and current racial discrimination in our state, and make Maryland a safe and just place for all. So up next, I'm going to I'm happy to introduce Judge Williams, who also needs no introduction. But again, as he said, he served as a federal judge for 20 years, as well as Prince George's County State's Attorney. And Judge Williams is going to give us a little more background about the state of incarceration in Maryland. So thank you, Judge Williams.
All right, thank you so much. And we've already heard a number of stats. So, yeah, she's going to work it. Yeah, I'm just going to look at her. Yeah. Okay, yeah, she knows when to turn. Again, we've heard a number of stats so far, so I'm just going to kind of run through this slide quickly. Next slide. Yeah, this is the outline of what we're going to talk about: the U.S. incarceration rates, the racial demographics, incarceration as a business, and then the inmate wages. First of all, we certainly need to understand that the United States is the world leader in incarceration. That's very unfortunate. But the United States accounts for 25% of the prison population, despite accounting for just 5% of the world's overall population. So the United States thinks they can incarcerate themselves out of their issues, and that's just not appropriate. I looked at an article a couple of years ago that said 1 out of 7 prisoners serving life sentences. 1 out of 7. That's just unbelievable. Like 15% of the entire prison population are lifers. And a lot of that stems from the cocaine and crack disparities and the sending of people away. In my view, too many people are incarcerated for non-violent offenses. And then the other background fact I want to say to everyone is that you remember what happened in the 1980s? The politicians were talking about lock them up and throw the keys away and that sort of thing. And they all came up with these mandatory minimum sentences. They were increasing employment of life sentences, as I said. The crack cocaine disparities resulted in just massive incarceration. And so we've got to stop and think about those things that took place. And they never did address the overall causes and consequences of incarceration. For example, look at all this violence and shootings and homicide. You know, it's serious, but some of this would be health issues. And we've got to look at this stuff from a health standpoint to begin to address the problem. Next slide. Incarceration by race, some of these stats are a little off. I think the Hispanics may be included in the white, but as I said, people of color make up 31% of the population. That's Hispanics and African Americans, yet they make up 67% of the overall population in this country. It's pretty tough. You can look at this and study it. the stats differ depending on who's taking them and what the approach is, but essentially, again, people of color only make up 37% of the population, yet 67% of the prison population. Next slide. Maryland's population, tough. Again, we've already talked about the population before of Maryland. We know that 31% of the population in Maryland would be African American, yet 70% are incarcerated in our system. So that's an issue that we really have to deal with from that standpoint. Let's see, continue on. All right, the items of mass incarceration span generations. Yeah, you can see what happens. So many young people, families have had persons incarcerated, and it carries over to the new generation, and it just affects people's ability to adjust and make it in America and in life. And so that's a stat that's pretty tough. Okay. Incarceration is a business. Certainly, all of us know that in this country, there's a number of states, including the United States, that has given private companies the ability to run prisons, and maybe that's an influence as to why we want to continue these policies of incarceration. We know that Core Civic Corporation, formerly Corrections Corporation of America, owns or leases or controls a number of prisons, and they get, of course, money out of that. So 8% of the prison population is controlled by the private industry there. So that's something to look at, the privatization of prisons. I don't have a thought on it one way or the other. To me, policymakers in the state and in the federal system must determine whether it's more appropriate or more feasible to have private companies look at this as opposed to the state. Keep going. Yeah, wages for girls. You know, you can read this for yourself. Again, a lot of the prisoners are taken advantage of. Maryland jail charges up to $3.15 for a 15-minute phone call. They reap profits for companies, while prisoners charge only 48 cents for a 15-minute call. And Maryland has a $2 medical copay for prisoners, and people in Maryland prison with more than $2 in their spending accounts. They have to pay for basic hygiene products and writing supplies, etc. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed from that standpoint. And then the other, next slide, we know that the Maryland legislators have tried their best to adjust and correct and revise some of the legislation and introduce legislation. One was the Maryland Justice Reinvestment Act. Again, they reduced Maryland's prison population and used the savings to provide for more effective treatment to offenders before, during, and after incarceration. It also was intended to reduce the likelihood of reoffending, as well as to benefit victims, as somebody asked a question about victims. And then we also had the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which is something that legislators look at. And of course, all of us here know there's a debate going on right now as to the accountability for young people. There's a number of young people that are engaged in carjacking and other kinds of violent offenses, and some people are calling for more accountability, some are calling for less. So that's a debate that we have to look at. But a number of young people have frequented the prisons, and they make up the population, so we certainly have to look at that. So these are just a few stats and background that I've certainly given you. My position, again, is that we just can't incarcerate ourselves out of this problem. It just doesn't work. We've got to look at, again, the underlying causes and consequences that breed this, and all of the issues. Where police are police, you know, why are we in certain geographical areas as opposed to not being present in others? What about the unfettered discretion that law enforcement has? That's part of the problem. Prosecutors, some of them are just overzealous and they're overcharged. That's part of the problem. And of course, I've already said my bias about judging. I was a judge, and I did not like the idea of having the federal sentencing guidelines dictate to me what I had to give as a sentence. What I'd like legislators to think about is stop taking the power away from judges and trust judges and let them take into consideration the various factors and the mitigating circumstances that would allow folks to get something as an alternative to a prison. So those are just some of the things that we need to look at. This is a global problem. And all of us, as I said, who are implementing policies of criminal justice, we're all part of the problem. And we have to come together and see where in the system can we make adjustments to make sure that we certainly consider victims, but at the same time, there's just a lot of injustices taking place across America right now. So we've got to take a look at all of that from that standpoint. So I'll stop here and let the program continue.
Thank you, Judge Williams. So, as the Attorney General mentioned earlier, despite our vast expertise in both of our offices, we really couldn't begin this initiative without hearing from the members of the community that are been affected the most, i.e. people that have been incarcerated, as well as the advocates that have been working closest to the ground. So to that end, we conducted a listening tour in September, even before this launch. We first started out with a 3-stop barbershop listening tour in Baltimore, where we heard, and some of the members of the collaborative were able to attend, so where we heard lots of feedback. Then we had a session only with formerly incarcerated people and their families. And finally, we had a session with those, again, close to the ground, the advocacy community. And again, what we heard really shaped the committee structure. You know, we heard about the need for more resource for education, about how, you know, a lot of family members and community organizations aren't even allowed into the jail to do services that they want to. So again, what we heard really helped shape the committees. I'm going to just show a short video just with some of the pictures and footage from that tour. So we played this earlier, just wanted to show you a sample. So this is the current membership of the collaborative. As mentioned, again, we have a wide variety of community stakeholders and voices to help inform the recommendations as well as the work. And I'll turn over to Ms. Flowers for the structure.
Right, good afternoon again. So first of all, I want to thank people who have committed to volunteering for this very important project. So I want to give you a round of applause because it's very important to acknowledge volunteers.
Hey, can I just break in here real quick? This is me over here, Anthony Brown. We saw the list of names, and can we just have, and we'll start on this side and go around clockwise. And you have to be brief. It's your name, your organization, your title, because I will jump in if you start telling me your mission statement, your goals, your vision, because that's going to be a big part of what we're doing for the next several months. But just introduce yourself, name, title, organization, and why don't we start there with Mr. Secretary.
My name is Vinny Shirali, Secretary of the Department of Juvenile Services, and I was born in a log cabin.
Hi, I'm Camila Reynolds Dominguez. I'm from Free State Justice. I'm the Policy Advocate and Legal Impact Coordinator, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, I'm Gwen Levi, formerly incarcerated, community activist, re-entry coordinator for, currently, I'm outreach coordinator, re-entry coordinator for Crack Library. And I speak on behalf of formerly incarcerated women, mostly women, so that we can begin to get not just a second chance, but a fair chance.
Hi, I'm Sonia Kumar. I'm a senior staff attorney at the ACLU of Maryland, and I run the Maryland Parole Partnership.
Michael Bernard, I teach at University of Maryland, Francis King Carey School of Law, and I'm the faculty director of the Gibson Bank Center for Race and Law, which just launched a month ago.
Portia Wu, Secretary, Maryland Department of Labor.
Good afternoon, Nate Bayless, Annie Casey Foundation, Director of Juvenile Justice Strategy Group.
Phil Caroon, I'm a retired judge with the Circuit Court in Maryland, but I'm here on behalf of Maryland Alliance for Justice Reform. It's an all-volunteer group, nonpartisan, working together to reduce mass incarceration and make the criminal justice system more equitable.
Good afternoon, Nicole Hanson-Mundo, Executive Director of Out for Justice, grassroots-based org that is led by formerly and currently incarcerated people, ensuring that laws and policies, that we're at the center of policy reform. Thank you.
Kiana Johnson, I am the founder and executive director of Life After Release, that is based in Prince George's County, Maryland, and also a co-conductor with Harriet's Wildest Dreams.
Hello, I'm Deborah Carr, the CEO of Job Opportunities Task Force, located in Baltimore. We're a nonprofit that does policy advocacy work, research and public education, and we run a workforce development program.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Luke Easel. I'm representing the Administrative Office of the Courts. I'm the Assistant State Court Administrator for Programs, where we work to advance court innovations and services statewide.
Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Shaw. I'm a judge on the Appellate Court of Maryland.
Good afternoon, Heather Warnken. I serve as Executive Director at the Center for Criminal Justice Reform at the University of Baltimore School of Law.
Hello, I'm Alex Williams, the founder and CEO of the Judge Alexander Williams Juvenile Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics.
Attorney General Anthony Brown.
Public Defender Natasha Darty.
Charles Adams, Executive Director of Institute of Restorative Justice and Rights.
Bill Gertner from Hagerstown. I'm Executive Director of Gatekeepers, a reentry 501c3 program in Hagerstown.
Keith Wallace, Director of Advocacy with the Justice Policy Institute.
Earl Young, a returning citizen.
Davon Love, Director of Public Policy, Leaders of the Beautiful Struggle.
Melvin Wilson, Executive Director of Turnaround Tuesday and Jobs Movement in Baltimore.
Karen Harper Mitchell, Deputy State's Attorney for Charles County, representing the Maryland State's Attorneys Association.
Terrence Nash, with the Mayor's Office of Baltimore City.
David Prater, I'm a Managing Attorney at Disability Rights Maryland.
Good afternoon, I'm Sharice Cass, Chief of Staff for Town Organization. We are a CARF accredited nonprofit behavioral health organization and a proud supporter of individuals released under the Juvenile Restoration Act and emerging adults.
Amber Green, coming from Maryland Eastern Shore in Salisbury, Maryland. I'm the founder and executive director of Phoenix Youth Project, servicing homeless youth in the Tri-County area.
Good afternoon. My name is Darren Popkin. I'm recently retired sheriff.
Something we're doing up here, just hold on a sec. Oh, it's down.
My name is Darren Popkin. I'm the recently retired elected sheriff of Montgomery County, and I am now the executive director of the Maryland Chiefs of Police Association and the Maryland Sheriff's Association. I represent law enforcement throughout the state of Maryland.
Jordan Gilmore, I'm a senior policy analyst in the Office of the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Good afternoon, I'm representing Maryland State Conference of the NAACP, and I am the current president for Charles County, Maryland.
Thank you all. Before we move on, we were going to hear from Ms. Gwen Levi. Did you want to come up? Did you want to bring the mic? Okay. Ms. Levi, she says, an advocate for impacted individuals, and will speak to us briefly.
Hi,
My name is Gwen. First of all, I'm thankful to be here, grateful that I'm allowed to speak. Also, I served 16 years of a 33-year sentence. During that time, I served as a...
Ms. Gwen, can you please speak into the mic?
I served... Am I speaking now? Okay. I served 16 years of a 33-year sentence, a federal sentence. But I was blessed to be able to come back to the state of Maryland to serve 9 years at the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women. It gave me a unique perspective to be able to see both systems and the lack that was there in both systems. I believe now that I'm home and see the resources that were lacking for me, I can speak on it. I was sent back to prison because I didn't and was not prepared in 2020 to come home to the technological climate that was there. Therefore, I was sent back to prison for trying to avail myself of the class. It's a long story, don't want to go into that too much, but what I want to say is that unless we start at the beginning and make sure that people are rehabilitated from the day one that they go in, unless we get programs that are meaningful for their release, that are meaningful that they can have upon their release, unless we provide all those wraparound services, we're going to continue to see those people returning to prison. We must begin to address the issues that I had when I came home. And that's the lack of support, even though there are thousands of programs. Right now, I know so many programs. Did I know them before I came home? No. Was I aware of many of them before I came home? No. So therefore, we see how well these programs work. We see that these programs make a difference. So we must take these programs inside the institutions to make sure that people, women like me, are aware, not just women, but residents like me, are aware that these programs are available to them and that they can avail themselves of those programs. We want to address issues. The lack of education in Baltimore City, the lack of no reading proficiency, no math proficiency, that starts people on that school to prison pipeline. I might be going all over the place, but if we don't address those issues before we get to the incarceration, we're going to continue to have.
Okay. Again, we've kind of branded the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative, and that's the umbrella organization for what we're doing. But the work is in the committee structure. We have, I guess, the first thing to let the collaborative know that you'll be meeting 4 times a year. And the goal is to have an ultimate report on that. But the committee structure is where the work happens. So the committees will make a significant determination of how frequently you meet in order to achieve these efforts toward the work. And the leadership structure should be acknowledged as chaired by both the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the Public Defender. Each committee will be chaired by someone from one of those agencies. So as if to accomplish moving forward with that leadership perspective. Now, the most significant thing is to remind everybody here, as you've heard from the roundtable in this discussion, is that we represent just about every, well, I'll just say, we represent every area of the state, and every community organization that has the ability to do what we need to do is represented in this forum. So that's the base of what we're doing as an organization, and that's the commitment moving forward. Okay, and this is the overall timeline. As you heard earlier, while this is the official launch, the unofficial, or the what they call the silent part of the campaign, was kicked off in September with the listening tour that started in Baltimore, and the follow-up was also a forum, two events with both impacted individuals and the base organizations who are here. And as you know, today is October 25th, and the overall launch. The next step, the next meeting will be on November 6th, which will be a public forum at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. And the launch of committees that you see will be from November until December, where the committee will come together. Now, the biggest piece of 2024 is to produce a preliminary legislative recommendations for the 2024 legislative session, which will come from, of course, the committee structure. And then in January 25, we'll produce a final report. And moving on to 2025 and 2026, it would be an ongoing implementation of the recommendations. And also, the most significant point is to track the outcomes overall.
I just wanted to also emphasize that point. I think a question we often get is, okay, you're forming this in what? And I think the end what of this is, again, we intend to, track and follow the recommendations that we put out and, follow them. So this is a little bit more about the committees. Sorry, it's a little small. But as you can see, these are the co-chairs for each committee. And again, there's a co-chair representative from the Attorney General's office.
Sorry for interrupting once again. I'm down here. Do all of the collaborative members have these PowerPoints on paper? Good. I see people like turning their neck about to break it. And okay, you just want to remind them, you got paper? It's in front of you? Okay, because I don't have it, but that's okay. Doesn't have it. There are a few that don't have it, so. Okay. Yeah, if you have a black folder, then it's in the black folder. We've got some more black folders, if we can work the way around, Becky.
Okay, next unbroken.
Could you just, for those of us, sorry, for valuable, could you just tell us what the committee?
Yes, yes.
Titles are?
Yes. So again, we'll have 8 committees. Again, these committees will meet more frequently. The first committee is the Education, Workforce Development, and Economic Opportunity Committee. That will address the policies and systems that create and preserve economic disadvantages that lead to involvement in the criminal justice system. The Prison, Jail, and Detention Facility Reform Committee, creating a safe and humane environment that facilitates rehabilitation and promotes public safety. The Promoting Successful Reentry and Preventing Reincarceration Committee, developing strategies to prepare incarcerated individuals for release, support returning citizens, and reduce recidivism. The Juvenile Justice Reform Committee, combating the school-to-prison nexus, providing a restorative justice system, and reforming laws for youth. The Criminal Law and Sentencing Reform Committee, and our own Judge Williams is a co-leading that. Again, identifying ways to reform substantive criminal law and sentences to reduce incarceration. The Law Enforcement Policies and Practices Committee, reducing discriminatory profiling and improved interaction with law enforcement. The Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee, expanding non-carceral options for those with mental health and addiction items. And finally, not pictured, but is the Executive Committee. So the Executive Committee will be comprised of all the co-chairs for each committee. And the Executive Committee will ensure there's a cohesive plan that takes into account the historical and continuing discrimination, perspectives of key stakeholders, and funding opportunities. Yes, Judge Williams? All right. So again, got two folders. So again, we will have seven committees, the 8 committees, including the Executive Committee, which will be comprised of the co-chairs of each of the other committees. So as I said, these committees will meet monthly or as determined by how they would like to meet. These meetings will be virtual. Again, co-chaired by a staff member from OAG, OPD, and an external stakeholder. And again, the commitment of a committee member is to offer support, expertise, and resources for the goal of the initiative. So also clear too, each committee will meet to determine the membership. So that's something that's an ongoing process, that's the next step. So the committees will determine the membership of the committees. So again, our public forum, as we...
Before you leave that, I think we need to emphasize, right? I mean, you saw names, right? OPD, OAG, and a few stakeholders. It's for each collaborative member to assign themselves, if you will, to notify Christian and Mr. Flowers, hey, I want to be on this committee, this committee, this committee. You can be on more than one, but don't stretch yourself too thin. There's a lot of overlap, as you can see in the committee structure. You're always going to have that when you're addressing a large problem with comprehensive solutions. And that what we envision is, you know, you've got these two co-chairs, right? One from the OAG, one from the OPD. And our offices are going to put in a lot of staff work on this. We're going to do a lot of the legwork, and you're going to bring the brain power. You're going to bring the experience. You're going to bring the passion. You're going to bring the ideas. And through those committees, building out the committees a little bit more than the collaborative, because there are going to be others who say, hey, I want to be a part of that. I want to work with that committee. Okay, and we're going to invite them in. Okay, and the only criteria, the only thing that keeps people out of the collaborative, if you don't believe that we can make change and make a difference, then you're not invited. But we will have people that want to make a change and a difference and an improvement. There's going to be different perspectives, different ideas, and there's going to be healthy debate and discussion. Okay, but if people aren't convinced to move in that direction, then they won't be invited. I don't think we're going to encounter that. And then the committees, through this committee structure, where the committees are determining how frequently they meet, who they invite to present to them, information that they need, that they want, that they discuss. It's going to be very decentralized. It's not a centralized collaborative where everything is top driven. So I hope that add a little bit to it.
So our next step in this journey, as Willie said, we have a public forum coming up on Monday, November 6th from 5 to 7 at the Reginald F. Lewis. We want to hear from everybody in the audience, again, your ideas, your strategies, just the insights we'll need to make this collaborative a success. So with that said, are there any questions about the presentation, structure, collaborative?
Really more of an offer than a question. If the committee wants to meet with some of the young people in one of our facilities, couldn't be a totally public forum, but we could arrange that either everybody or some small part of us or detention. And we have facilities from the Lower Eastern Shore to Garrett County. So.
My question is, I heard there's the goal is policy, right? Are we only talking about legislative reforms, or are we also talking about agency regulation type of reforms as well?
Right, so I touched on that, touched on that briefly, I think in response to one of the media questions. Yeah, so there's the universe of recommendations is vast. It could be that we make recommendations to the legislature to change a law, make a law, whatever. It may be recommendations not only for regulations at the agencies, but just practices, the way that they practice, right? We heard about some of the practices at the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services regarding access by family members and things like that. Some of that is a practice and not a regulation or a law, so it could be practices. It could be funding recommendations, things that need to be funded. It could be identifying existing resources and making recommendations on how to better align those resources in government, outside of government, with academia. So it's limitless, and that's why while you see the report deadlines, if you will, or the goals, January 2024, January 2025, often for people they're thinking like, oh, they're talking legislation. No, it just happens to be that January 25 is the month after the end of the year 2024. So we want to give ourselves a full year to work on this. Regarding legislative session 2024, the committees are going to convene, right? over the course of the next few weeks. If there are high consensus issues that can be presented to the General Assembly in this upcoming legislative session, then we certainly will consider them as a collaborative. I put an emphasis on high consensus only because, and I said in my remarks, right, this is a problem that's been around for decades, if not over a century, and we're not going to fix this in the next 2 months in the 2024 legislative session. But there may be some things that we can do. But we're thinking long game. There may be some short-term opportunities. This is long game. This is hopefully transformational change with a lot of incremental steps along the way.
I just want to say thank you for that, because we often only hear our elected officers talking about term type of solutions. And one of my colleagues, Ray Kelly, in one of his recent reports talked about, in order to see real change, transformational change, it has to extend beyond someone's tenure. So I'm really excited to hear you literally quote the words of his report. Thank you.
And I really want to add that the collaborative aspect of this is essentially the opportunity to break down individual silos and come into a space together. Because what may have seemed as, perhaps aspirational for me alone as the Office of the Public Defender, the dynamics change when it's the Office of the Public Defender and the Office of the Attorney General. So similarly, the dynamics of what perhaps in your respective organizations you thought was possible changes, because now we are the MEJC. So I want, when you come into your committees, to think from that perspective. That may have been aspirational for you as a singular entity. Put it out there, have the discussion, because us all coming together, it may no longer be aspirational. It's just that, from my perspective, I never thought about it, or I did not understand that to be. So really think about that in the committees.
Are there any other questions?
But there's one other comment I need to make. Each of you represent or are part of an organization that has a mission, right? Has an agenda, and are setting out to make an impact. Your participation on this collaborative, and this may be obvious to most, but I think it's worth saying, is no way you foregoing, relinquishing, abandoning what your organizations do, right? What do I mean by that? You're going to go to Annapolis with something in January, and you may think that, hey, this is something I want the collaborative to get behind. Well, maybe it's going too fast for the collaborative, right? The committees haven't met, they haven't considered it, or they are considering it, but they haven't achieved high consensus. That doesn't mean that you're not going to go down to Annapolis in your individual or representative capacity with your organization, right? So this is not the sum total of the effort. We're leveraging, and we are, I don't like the word leveraging, we are building on the good work that you've done. And because it's a collaborative, right, it's gonna move at a certain pace. For some of you, that pace may not be fast enough. Don't walk away from the collaborative, please. Stick with us, stay with us. But also don't forego your efforts that you or your organization are making to advance the mission, the values, the objectives of your organization. Does that make sense? Right? And maybe it's the obvious, but I thought it was worth saying.
So just a little housekeeping. If you didn't get the PowerPoint, it'll be emailed to you.
Any other questions?
Hey everyone, I just wanted to know, Department of Parole and Probation, they've been invited, only because folks who don't know, I actually served time, and I did 6 months extra on my sentence because there was such a traumatic issue with parole and probation. And before we can really talk about ending mass incarceration, we do have to look back and kind of pay attention to some of the folks that are you know, trapped inside of cages because the places like Department of Probation and Parole, case management, and all those other entities and agencies are not 100%, you know, up to par. And so I would like to know, where is the Department of Probation and
and I hope that applause is because you know that they are participating on the collaborative, while their presence may not be here today. We do have, for example, 2 members of the governor's cabinet, and quite frankly, I want to give them applause for being here, running large organizations. So yes, they are invited. And let me just say this, and I can't speak on behalf of one of my most important clients, Governor Wes Moore. He's my client. I represent him as the chief legal officer of the state. But Governor Moore is very supportive of this, and if he wasn't, I don't think you'd see Secretary Wu or Secretary Shirali here. And you will see active participation from those departments. They are very much going to be a part of that. Yep.
Questions? Okay, I will turn it over back to our co-chairs to adjourn us.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you again. The energy that's felt today, I hope it continues. The work, honestly, is going to be difficult and it's going to be long. We've been in this space for decades upon decades, and we're not going to dig ourselves out in a matter of weeks and months. But it is possible. I am inspired and encouraged by those who are present, but also those who could not be with us today that are committed. As long as we are committed to the issues to eliminate mass incarceration, I do believe that we can make significant change in Maryland. And again, thank you for gathering today.
Thank you very much, everybody.
In the collaborative, stick with us for just few more minutes. I'd love to take a group photo of the collaboration. Fritz, you're good? We'll put the logo up here. All right, so everyone with the collaborative who is at the meet, sitting on stage, you could just, I guess, stand up? What do you think? I don't know. Hold on.
No. Jen.
Okay, you've been asked to line up along the front for a group photo, please.